My name is Jennifer Ashley. I am from the Univest Foundation. I'm the Plan Giving Officer. On behalf of Univest Foundation, I want to thank you all for coming to today's webinar. I want to thank Greg Wilson for being here with us today. Before I get into some nitty-gritty, I want to talk a little bit about Univest Foundation. We are a 501c3 organization that was established by Univest Corporation to help individuals with gift planning and to help nonprofits in developing or expanding their plan giving outreach. One way that we assist nonprofits is by providing learning opportunities in the areas of plan giving and development. Today, Mr. Wilson will be focusing on the plan giving aspect of development. Before I get into introducing Mr. Wilson, just a few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded, so as participants, you are all muted. If you have a question, please ask it in the Q&A box. Please, when you do that, just make sure that we're all reading it so we can all see it. Greg does intend to leave a few minutes at the end of the session for questions that he is not able to answer along the way. But hopefully we'll be able to get to all your questions. And as I said, it's being recorded, so you'll be able to listen to this again as I will send it out in a couple weeks. Since all of you know where to find the coffee in the bathrooms and the tea, I hope, let me introduce you to Greg Wilson. Greg is the Associate Vice President for Development at Good Shepherd Rehabilitation Hospital. He joined Good Shepherd about 2 years ago. Prior to Good Shepherd, he had plan giving and development roles in higher education and community service organizations. He has earned the Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy from the American College of Financial Service, a Master of Science in Nonprofit Management from Eastern University, and holds the CFRE designation. He developed stick-figure plan giving with over 20 years of experience in donor development. So we are very excited to hear this. Greg, please take it away.
Hopefully you can hear me. Thank you again for that introduction, Jennifer, and it's great to be here today. So just this title. A few of the items that we're going to cover today, really just the basics. I prefer shark fins and nimcruts myself. They just kind of roll right off of the tongue. We'll also touch on the IRS mortality table and how to use this to adjust your yearly cash flow projections based on your plan gift commitments. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It hurts to actually say just some of that. There's not a whole lot of plan giving jokes, so I try to get them in where I can. This is actually my kids' favorite slide of my whole presentation, as they've had to sit through this numerous times during its creation. I'll also just put out a quick asterisk that throughout all of my presentation, I'll interchange plan giving and deferred giving as we go. One, I think, is more of an industry term that we call it as plan giving, but I think deferred giving actually resonates with our donors much more, because if you were to ask many of them, they would tell you that they plan out all of their giving, or if not most of it. But I also will pick up myself that I'm part of the cause of the first two slides. I think I now have more letters after my name than are actually in my name. But my view and sort of style of presentation is I like to try to be as interactive as I can. So please feel free to ask any questions, and I'll try to answer them as I go. But just use the little Q&A box, and hopefully I'll take care of them. So a show of hands, which you can't do today, but like still, you know, pretend. How many of you were expecting a presentation like the first couple of slides? If you're like me, that's like most of the presentations you've ever gone to. And how many of you are even just afraid of plan giving as a whole? You hear that term and you kind of skitch a little bit, or you run away some. And how many of you at this point already are wondering if the cost of today's presentation is refundable? That I can't help you too much with, because I'm here for the full hour. So I'm also really thrilled to do this as a two-parter with Jay Cherney. He was last week talking about a donor's money story and how a donor looks at money and how that impacts their philanthropic priorities. And I think that Jay and I are two sides of the same coin. Really, that plan giving is more more than any other type of fundraising, but it's more about the donors than your typical annual fund or even major gifts, that it's all focused on them and their timelines and not necessarily what the organization is prioritizing at that moment. So I have two guarantees for the day. The first guarantee that I have is that anyone can do planned giving. You know, I'll confirm this. I'll say this back and forth multiple times, and within that fact that anybody can do planned giving is that there's really no techno-babble in my presentation. I'll do my best to use terms that we all can understand and we can all relate with, and really because that's important with our donors as well. And my guarantee on there that literally goes back to the if anybody can do this, or that anybody can do planned giving, that you really don't need necessarily a JD or any sort of fancy letters after your name. You really just need to care about your donors. And this is what I did before I entered fundraising. It's one of my favorite photos. This was about a 14,000 ear of corn weekend, somewhere in 1997, 1998 or so. And all of the corn was pulled by hand, so done by the three of us. And so as you can see, there's no specialized training needed. And really, it's just this overriding thought that, you know, we should all love planned giving. We help ordinary people make extraordinary gifts. And now I'm going to let you in on a secret combined with that whole anyone can do planned giving, and I really do mean anyone. You can't play the victim. You can't say, oh, we're the little old nonprofit down the road, we can't do planned gifts. You know, when I do this in person, I actually have an inflatable hammer that I'll go around and start to bop people if I think that you're feeling that way, because truly anybody can do planned giving, and it comes down to three keys, and they are to build trust, be consistent, and have patience. So within that, real life, what do donors think about? Do they sit around and think about fundraisers all day long? Do they ponder their death at the family dinner table and think about what member is going to get what asset? No, they think about themselves. They think about what their next vacation is going to be. They think about their family. Maybe they think about work. And maybe, just maybe, they'll think about your organization. But planned giving is not a stimuli and response fundraising. You know, and I'll say this over and over again, that it's not. This is a very much of going back to those three keys. There's some patience involved. You have to be ready when they're ready. So real life again, why would a donor want to connect with you? They'd want to connect with you because of trust. They trust you, they trust your organization, and they have connected with you and your organization emotionally. They'll see how they'll improve the world or pay it back through your organization. But again, that's all keyed off of trust. I'll also refer to the line throughout my presentation a couple times. And again, this factors back into the trust term. And this term is from financial planning thought leaders, Scott Fithian and Todd Fithian. And unfortunately, Scott died about 15 years ago now. And they were the first to articulate a change in how high net worth individuals were looking at the financial planning process. So there's the above the line. And really the Fithian model, distills everything to above the line or below the line. Above the line is the why, that's the emotion. The below the line is the how, or the technical, going back to that first slide of all of those various gift vehicles that could happen. You know, and for us in the nonprofit world, to me, this is the best way to look at above the line or below the line. The emotion is that philanthropy. We bring that whole why to that relationship. And again, that goes back to the trust that we're talking about, that we want them to be comfortable with us. They need to trust us, because then they are going to be looking at the big picture whys to think through what they're going to do, how, you know, if they're going to make a deferred gift and what type of impact they want to make with it. And then there's the technical professions that bring the how, you know, and really, none of us on this call today, even as I pick on myself again with all the letters after it, none of us are truly technical experts. That's not what we do day in, day out. we focus on donors as our day in, day out. That's what we're the experts in. So we need to focus on the area that's most important and the area that we can impact the most, which again is this above the line and the why conversations. You know, just critical to keep thinking about that. So the real choices that go back into plan giving, again, of where, what we want to support when we pass. You know, it happens to all of us, whether we're you know, sort of ready for it or not. But family and friends are the one main area that we can support. Federal government's another place. And then there's nonprofits, and obviously we want to work with our donors to ensure that they take care of number one and number three, that they want to look at their family and their choice nonprofits within all of this. So we touched on the fact that at some level, people almost have to make a type of philanthropic plan for their end-all be-all. And then it comes down to the why. Why would somebody choose to do that? Why would somebody choose to support a nonprofit over just saying, well, I'll give as much as I can to my family, and I know some of it will have to go to the Uncle Sam, so I'll just, you know, sort of, well, I won't deal with it. Somebody else will have to deal with it, actually, is what a lot of people say. But so, again, our role in here is that why in their relationship. Why do people make deferred gifts? You know, a lot of times it comes down to investment. You know, they want to make an investment in our organization or most likely the community at large. There might be some obligation or specific gratitude. In our case, we might have helped them, one of their family members. We might still be caring for one of their family members. You might have literally become part of their family. You know, it's also goes back to that trust again, that they trust you so much that they literally count you as one of their children as they're making their end of life plans. And some of it, depressingly, really comes down to just a fear of mortality. You know, whether it's a named deferred gift or anything like that. Sometimes people just look at philanthropy and making that gift through their estate as a way to live forever. And I also think that this is a reason why more older people make deferred gifts, because they've really have a better idea of how things are going to end. They see that time ends, or that different things end at a certain point, and they want to be able to make it on past there. But as much as death is probably the largest motivator, you cannot market based on death or the deceased. You want to talk about a mood killer? That's usually about the worst way to lead some type of marketing campaign, is that, you know, donor Joe died, and because he died, you know, we can now do this kind of thing. Like, that's usually a pretty morbid way to phrase things. You know, you always want to try to talk about living donors, and if you do have to touch on and use a deceased donor as a donor story, then you always want to make sure that your focus is on the outcomes of what they provided, rather than just the you know, fact that they were a donor that has since passed. The other thing you can do too, and it's something that we've started experimenting with a lot at Good Shepherd, is you can even write, we call them Dear Abby letters here, that you draft a letter as if you're a donor writing in to ask a particular question about a particular scenario, whether it's life income, or it's even like, how do I sort things out? You know, which assets are better for which beneficiaries? And we've seen some pretty decent success with that so far. And again, going back to death, because unfortunately at some level that's what it's all about. We really do offer our donors that taste of immortality, that knowing that if they structure something with us and it's all put together in the right way, that they're able to envision this sort of best view of themselves living on forever. And it's just super cool when that all works out in the right way. So below the line, there's a few technical items that you would need to know and be able to talk about. especially as a Pennsylvania nonprofit, but the main items to really think through are bequests. I believe it's still 80+% of all deferred gifts are come through a pure bequest, which is just a gift through your will. Some of the easiest language to be able to share with a donor. Or beneficiary designations, which is where they just name your nonprofit, or our nonprofit in this case, as a beneficiary to a life insurance policy or to their IRA, which is super important. And as I'm sure you've all seen in the various CARES Act webinars and all of those things, there's now 2 magic numbers for donors. There's 70.5 when they can start to make the required minimum distribution, and then 72 is when they're now required to make that minimum distribution. And then also the PA inheritance tax, which is just the easiest way that I always remember it, is the farther out the genealogical tree you go, the heavier your beneficiaries will be taxed. But again, today, most of my focus is to help you get comfortable with individuals making bequests, and then making that, and you saying the words to ask them, would they consider making a gift through their will? So then who? You know, sometimes this is even more important than the what's or any of those technical items. You know, who do you want to talk to? Who should you be spending your time with? You know, you only have a limited amount of time, and especially if you're a small shop and you're a you know, one person director of development that's writing the annual fund appeals, creating the newsletter, trying to do some major gifts and some planned work, in addition to any type of plan giving type work. So really, who do you want to focus on? The first one is anybody who does not have children. I know it's a little bit morbid, but they're the best place to start with, specifically because, again, on the morbid side, their assets have to go somewhere. Why not have them support an organization through their will that they've been supporting through their lifetime? You know, again, building that trust, you could become one of their children at that point as far as they consider you. Loyal donors, you know, if they've given to you every year for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, there's a high probability that they're interested in your organization and the work that you do. And they're probably literally waiting for someone to ask, even though the donor, might not know that. They're interested, they're looking to make that next type of gift. You know, statistically, after 7 years of consecutive giving, the percentage that someone will include you in their estate plans jumps, and then at 15 years, it actually jumps significantly again. So, you know, there are 2 big numbers to look for, whether somebody's been giving significantly for 7 years or for 15 years. Volunteers, and they're one that typically gets overlooked. But, you know, I joke about it. They're literally working for your organization for free. So do you think they like you and your organization? I'm thinking they probably do. You know, they're probably pretty committed. If they show up, you know, at their appointed time, do the work that they're been asked to do. A lot of times they do a lot more work than they've been asked to do. They're pretty committed to your organization. And then the last, the board. And I always kind of joke, and I'll again put my little disclaimer out there for any board member that might be on this call right now, but I list the board mostly because I have to. You know, they really should make a deferred gift to your organization. A lot of them are committed to your organization, but in reality, most of your board probably won't make a deferred gift to your organization. If you're like many organizations, your board is actually comprised of some community leaders, and there's only a certain number of community leaders that all of the other nonprofits can tap and can ask to be on the board. And so what happens is your community leaders end up rotating from organization to organization to organization. And that said, they love your organization, and your organization is a high priority for them while they're on the board. But typically, once they roll off, and I'm sure some of you have seen this, then they're not quite as committed to you as they used to be. You know, and with all of that, the board really does need to set an example. They need to lead the way for everybody else. But please don't set your expectations very, very high for them. So what type of gifts should you be talking to people about as far as planned giving? And again, with your very limited time, and within our safe space as fundraisers, we'll call them bequests. But anytime we're donor facing, we really should call them a gift in the will. That's one of the easiest ways for a donor to include you in their estate plans, in their sort of future forever plans. But that's just the most straightforward. They can either be a contingent type gift, or they can be a percentage or residual or a fixed amount. Really, whatever works for them. I'll say this again, though, frequently the bequest, though, operates much more on the donor's timeline than anything you're looking at as the nonprofit's timeline. That's going to be key. I've touched on this in other presentations I've given, but in trying to teach it, I mean, really, how many of you are going to sign up and go through something that's as painful as a root canal voluntarily just because I asked you to? And really, if you're asking a donor to go place your organization in a will within a certain set of time, at some level, that's what you're doing, because you're asking them to go to their lawyer, spend some time and money with their lawyer, which may or may not be their most favorite thing to do, just to include your nonprofit. So that's, again, one of those coming back to, you need patience, because that needs to be that just drip in front of them till they have to go and make a change for a different life event. And that's typically when they'll include you in their will. The next one are IRA QCDs. And it used to be that as soon as somebody hit 70.5, from a fundraiser's point of view, I'd put a big hug me sign on their back, that we'd want to go up and give them a nice big hug and talk to them about how, if they don't need that income today, they can roll over that required minimum distribution rate to a nonprofit, and that scratches a whole bunch of check boxes and itches for them. Now there's some extra rules around that based upon the CARES Act, but it's not anything that's terrible, and it's not anything that you should take out of your toolbox. That's still a very important item to focus on. And then beneficiary designations. What assets should we discuss for beneficiary designations? And I literally say everything. That's one of the areas where, again, we can provide our value for helping a donor think through some of those whys. Who do they want to help? How do they want to help them? What sort of impact do they want to make after they pass? There's some pros and cons to everything. A life insurance policy is typically best to leave to a non-spousal beneficiary, because a life insurance benefit is not taxed when it goes to somebody else. But at the same time, if you have a donor of more modest means that wants to make an outsized impact on your nonprofit, then sometimes life insurance is the best way to go. They can make small premiums and to pay for a large term life policy and have it make, again, that outsized impact upon their passing. But again, the traditional ones that you want to look at for IRAs you want to look at for beneficiary designations are IRAs, investments accounts, again, I touched on the life insurance, and even donor advised funds. There are some asterisks, again, with everything there, as I put my couple down at the bottom. Vanguard and Fidelity, among others, they're just two of the largest names to share, have literally come out now and said that if you name a nonprofit as a beneficiary of your retirement account, they do not feel obligated, nor will they most likely do the work to notify said nonprofit that they're a beneficiary. So it is important that we have these conversations with our donors and that they understand that, or else you could have money sitting out there forever kind of deal. And then it's also at the what, where if you do have the sort of geek out tendencies, this is a good place to start to spend some more time and focus on. Not all assets are created equal, and this is a good place where we can sort of be a techno geek and play some matchmaking as far as walking a donor through what their options might be and how some items might be more beneficial or less beneficial than others. Just the biggest thing, though, is you have to let them know that unless you are qualified to offer advice, you can't technically offer advice. And I phrase that as one of the best things we can do for our donors is to help them ask the right questions of their professional advisors. So now, as you've been listening to me for about 25 minutes already, you're going to go, man, I don't know what to say in this. Guy's just been going on and on and on. So, really the best thing to do when you're sitting down with a plan giving donor is to just listen. You don't have to be worried about what you're going to say. You want to just sit back and listen to what the donor has to say. And this goes back to a lot of what Jay was talking about last week, is you want to listen to what the donor talks about. You want to listen to how different items have made a difference in their life. They might talk about how they only got to go to college because of a scholarship, or, they can remember going to bed, maybe not hungry, but not as full as they would have liked to have been a lot of nights as a kid growing up. Or, maybe they had to move a lot because of some home insecurity as a kid. So again, you want to listen for those types of qualifiers as far as what's their priorities in the world, what are their values, and really then where do they spend their money? Where do they put that money at as again, a very good way to understand what the donor is looking for and what type of impact they want to make. And I do have to say, though, that within that listen, you will learn some new limits to what your body can physically do as far as sitting and listening. Again, going back to that patience and building trust, these meetings with a good plan giving prospect are going to take a lot longer than what you might normally have when you have a conversation about a major gift with a business person who knows that they have 55 minutes to do this lunch, and they're just ready to listen to what you have to say and already have a preset amount in their head that they're going to then sort of look along that range to see what they're going to do for your organization. Here you want to listen for what their motivations are, again, going back to Jay's work, and then to even listen for these couple of key statements of if somebody says, I wish I could do more. That you hear that a lot with the super consistent, whether they're like 4 times a year, 5 times a year direct mail donors, you might call and just say thank you to them, and out of their mouth will come, I wish I could do more, or I love Good Shepherd so much. Like phrases like that are pretty key to listen for. Or there's always to listen to for the bedroom conversation. And no, not this bedroom conversation. Hopefully most of you get this joke, and if not, then I'm starting to show all of the gray hair that's in my hair here. And it's probably time to update my material. So this bedroom conversation was what I'm talking about. And it's the conversation where it doesn't always occur through the bedroom. Sometimes it's the living room, sometimes it's the kitchen, but it's when the donor walks you through their most prized photographs. It could be the sort of sepia colored photo of their parents from 1930 or 1920 or something like that. They break out the photo album and flip through all of the photos that they want to share with you to point out the nieces and nephews and, who's done where and, what the family reunion looked like in 1978 when there was, 103 of them that showed up to that gathering. And I have always shared this with newer gift officers that you don't walk into an 80-year-old's bedroom so they can show you their entire family tree in photos without them trusting you. This, again, is the level of trust that you're trying to build with them. This is totally key. And then with this, though, comes the responsibility that we need to then live up to that trust. So again, how do we get here? Just like it takes to get to Carnegie Hall, it's practice, practice, practice. And in our case, plan giving's the same. We do need to practice. Your car windshield and your bathroom mirror are 2 of your best friends when it comes to practicing. But really, it's that consistency. We always want to have the message being shared with our donors about how they can make this impact to our organization by making a gift through their will. This, again, consistent, solid marketing or outreach is just critical. Perception is reality as far as most things go. So think about the image. If the donor only sees your donor stewardship pieces or your communication pieces sort of randomly or haphazardly, they're always changing your strategy or changing the look or, just sort of bouncing all over the place. Do you think that they're really going to trust you with your with their final assets after they're gone? My guess is probably not. Again, they're looking for those organizations that have been around, that are going to continue to be around, that have focused on what they're doing, what their core mission is, and that they just work on that each and every day, and that they then communicate that back out each and every day. And I always talk about the first two marketing tools I created were pretty terrible. I mean, to be blunt, this is the sort of mid 2000s, and desktop publishing was super cool then, so you could do it through Word, and you felt high tech then. And I hope that most days that neither of those two pieces ever see the light of day. But the best part about them was I just beat the snot out of them day in, day out. They were just consistent. I sent them to everybody, whether it was mailing them, whether it was emailing them or whatever. I know it does still see the light of day at some part because the first one that I did actually still continues to generate deferred gifts for that organization. And it's been 12 years, I think, since I've been there now. It's in several places, just some taglines. It's some checkboxing and how they did included items into their direct mail. And for the second organization, again, it was pretty ugly, but just beat the snot out of it. And for that organization, this not flashy, but just consistent piece of marketing generated their first deferred gift that was at that time estimated at greater than $500,000, which was super neat in like 2009, and knowing that it was all in stocks, because that was one of the very best years for stocks at that point. So what, you might be sitting and going, okay, I think I can do this. What do I really need to get started? At the beginning, really all you need is just a bequest or a deferred gift commitment form. It's something that's not legally binding, that's just more of a statement of intent. Hey, this is what I'm interested in. And as far as your bequest or deferred gift confirmation form, feel free to acquire it or borrow it from somebody else. I can always trace some of my form genealogy going back to one of my mentors from about 15 years ago that I borrowed it from him at the time. And it's followed me through various organizations. And, it's just kind of that logo at the top that changes, and a few other things might change from time to time, but literally it's the basics of it are the same form that I acquired, I believe, in like 2006. And a bonus that you can do to really help your donors is to just create some sample wording that a donor could create, or that they could include in their will if they're so inclined. And really the donor might only thank you a little bit. Their lawyer will probably thank you a lot. I remember drafting my very first sample language, just getting it checked out, confirmed, okay, it's something that we can share around. Again, with all the big asterisks that, this is not specific advice. This is just something for you to take to your attorney as a starting point, and then literally seeing my couple of sentences copied and pasted directly into that donor's will. Kind of made me chuckle a little bit there. But again, we're trying to help the donors by meeting them where they are at that point in time. So sometimes you need to be okay with some plagiarism coming towards you. So the only downside of planned giving is that, you might run into a little resistance, which is all a bummer, because you're all excited right now. You've been listening to what I'm saying and like, oh my gosh, I could totally do this. I can ask these people that I talk to a couple times a year to just go, hey, have you ever considered making a gift to, this organization in your will? So you're all ready. You're going to start tomorrow morning. You're set to go. Then you have a conversation with your boss, who's not quite as enthusiastic as you are about plan giving. So, I've talked about patience, and you need to have patience with your donors. You also need to have patience with your boss. A lot of times you need to have these conversations with them to share with them what plan giving is about. You need to do as much education and cultivation with them as you do with your donors. You need to just make them aware of what plan giving can do for your organization and what other organizations are doing, at the very least, so that you don't get left behind in it. You can at least be keeping up with the Joneses of the nonprofit world. But the biggest thing to be aware of is projections. Plan giving is very unpredictable. We operate on the donor's timeline, and unfortunately, we even operate on their health timeline and then their lawyer's timeline afterwards to execute their estate. And even if you come really, really prepared for the meeting, you still need to avoid the whole bequest acceleration tool conversation, where your boss might come to you and say, oh my gosh, we really need realized bequests to hit $1 million this year. We think we're going to be short on our special event side. We can't ever make those types of projections. There's we can't do it. I've literally had to have conversations with different levels of management at different places that there's nothing we can do to speed up or slow down some of this process, unless, depressingly, they want to take our list of plan giving donors and let me know which ones that they don't want to ever see at events again, and then you can control your time frames. So just, again, I've found that humor helps solve some of that. So again, your boss answers what's going to help them. A gift through somebody's will is typically the largest gift that a donor is ever going to make. So something that bosses and CFOs tend to get pretty excited about. It also comes from your donor's largest bucket, which is their assets, and the easiest for them to divide up into these big chunks. And while deferred gifts take time, their time is spread out over multiple months and sometimes multiple years. So it's not like a very intensive major gift conversation where you're talking to that individual or that foundation almost day in, day out for 2 weeks. You're able to just do a little nudge there, a little nudge there, a little push there, a conversation there. And so it might take years, but again, it's not that concentrated. You can have multiple sort of irons in the fire for your plan giving donors at one time. The other big thing, though, is that there's not a silver bullet. If you don't start now, you're going to be worse off in 5 years than you are today as far as plan giving goes. The more work you can do now today makes it more likely you're going to have that money tree later in your organization's lifespan. And really the biggest one that your boss will like is that once a donor makes a deferred gift commitment, they're typically a lot more engaged and involved and committed to your organization, because now they want to make sure that you're around forever and ever to actually use their money the way that they want you to use it. And their annual giving will actually go up. That's a trend that's been documented by Russell James. A lot of us have seen it anecdotally, but it was just nice to have Dr. James prove that with some of his data. And so if you've been around plan giving for a while, it's time to take a drink of your water or whatever anytime you hear Dr. James's name. So again, we've been through everything. How do you get started? Really it comes down to just a couple of questions. Well, first, are you even having any deferred gift conversations? And if you're not, you need to just start. And one of the easiest ways to do that is, do you have a plan giving legacy society? They come in all shapes and sizes and various names. Some of them just call them a legacy society. Some are a plan giving society, whatever. Just literally come up with a name. A lot of times it's tied off to your founding year or your founder's name or something like that. If you do direct mail, that's the next easiest place to get started. Just include a little checkbox on the front of your reply device that says, I have included Good Shepherd in my will, or I'm interested in including Good Shepherd in my estate plans. And then the last one, do you have a donor database? Can you look for those donors that are that have been giving to you for a long time, or even better yet, do you have information on whether or not they have kids? So, and here's your really easy takeaway actions. I just walked you through them, but it just comes down to as easy as just start that deferred gift society. Just come up with a name. You can literally sit there and brainstorm for 15 minutes and come up with the name. The name doesn't matter. It's the fact that you have this society. So one, you can ask people if they've made a commitment to that society already, and they can feel like they're part of a group, a much larger group if they say that, because some of the reason why donors never disclose is they feel weird or awkward. So you want to give them this welcoming environment to join. Again, I mentioned the checkbox. That's the easiest thing to add to your direct mail process. And you always want to make sure it's on the front so the donor doesn't have to think any further than like flipping the card over or anything like that. And then just create that, bequest confirmation, estate attention membership form or whatever, or again, feel free to borrow it from a friend. That's the easiest way to do this. Right there, these are the only 3 things you truly, truly need to start your plan giving program at your organization. And if you want some extra credit, remember, just marketing. Solid, consistent marketing is key. You want to build that trust through your marketing, through that consistency, so that donors see you day in, day out, that you're always around, you're going to be around forever, and that they can trust you. You also want to start your own reference library, and this just has some basics that have like the proper name of your organization, the tax ID number, any investment accounts in the broker's name, and just some sample language. And again, you can literally have all of this on a one-page Word document that you can email out to people if they have questions, or convert it into a PDF. But then also so that as you get these little one-off questions, you don't have to hunt it down each time, that you can just do a quick response to somebody and say, oh, the proper name of us is this, or Good Shepherd Rehabilitation Network in Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, or our tax ID number, that you can just rattle off the tax ID number or copy and paste it and send it back out. Just again, you're trying to eliminate any friction that you have anywhere along the line. So, and then again, there's the bonus. To show up above the line. Again, focus on that emotion, focus on their whys and the whos. You want to be relatable, be knowledgeable. You don't have to be an expert, but you have to be knowledgeable at some level. And then be what the donor wants, which is one of you, and to be yourself, really. They just want somebody that they can talk to, that they can share their reasonings behind while they're doing these things, that they can talk about the motives and the whys, because none of their other advisors are going to be interested in the whys. They're all going to be interested in the timings and the whats. So again, we're there to fill this specific role of the whys. And I always hate this slide, to be honest, because it has a photo of me on it, but that is so important, going back to the be relatable. We might all not necessarily like having our photo out and about, but it's very important that, again, our donors see us, that they can build trust with us, that they can build this narrative in their own head as to who we are. One place where we did this quite frequently and had our photos on everything, I would literally have the proverbial little old lady showing up to events carrying one of our marketing pieces, so that she could confirm that the person that sent her this piece of mail, which was me, was the person that was really showing up to the meeting, whether it was the lunch meeting or whatever. And for them, that meant this whole lot. That accelerated that trust process, that then they felt comfortable. So now you've done all of this work and you're ready. You've drafted everything, and then yikes, somebody responded. What do I do? Or, even better yet, I made time to be proactive. What do I do now? And again, we talked about this earlier, but just to reiterate, because you've probably, some of you have worked yourself into a Starbucks froth at this point. Just remember, everybody can do plan giving. It's all about the donor. It's just listening to them, focusing on what they want to accomplish and what their emotions are. You can literally start with just, why do you support our organization? Why do you do that? And then just follow up with, have you ever considered including Good Shepherd in your will? Is that something that you've ever considered? And then another bonus phrase to quick toss out is thank you. We really appreciate you including, Good Shepherd in your plans. If you don't mind me asking, why did you do this? And that's it. You can all do this. We have one quick question here. So to interrupt my quick presentation there, Jill's question is pretty good and pretty deep and pretty common as well. I've seen a lot of donors do that. I'll quick read the statement that Jill has tossed out, that she has a donor that she works with who's 90 and part of her planned giving society. The donor has recently remarked that she's thinking of giving us money before she dies, but she doesn't want to spend money on a lawyer or financial advisor to assist her. There's a couple of ideas there, and the biggest one, she can always sort of pre-fund what her estate gift might have been if she would have already included your organization in her plan. I've seen a fair amount of people do that over the years, that their assets are doing better than they had thought, so they decide to sort of like pre-fund their estate gift, their gift through their will, through a gift of cash. At that point, you want to walk through and again figure out that why. Or does she want to see an impact happen today rather than having that impact not start until after she passes? Or if she's looking for some type of structured type gift, that maybe she's looking for some consistent income, she has somebody else she wants to provide for a short term, I would walk her through the basics of a charitable gift annuity, which is just a simple contract. You don't need any financial nor legal involvement there. As long as she comes across as, you don't have any concerns, I guess is a better way to put it, as to what her mental facilities are at that point. That's a good way for her to make that gift permanent and structured without involving a financial advisor or an attorney. And a lot of it too, and I feel bad because I get asked questions during this, is a lot of it always depends on, well, it depends. Like, what are her specific scenarios? Is she trying to care for, say, a nephew or a niece, and, she wants to provide them some income while they're still living, or, is she worried about, a pet being taken care of, or is she worried about running out of money before she dies, and that's why she wants to make a gift now? And so some of those are going to be pick and choose, like what vehicle might be best, but some of it might even come back to that whole why, and she wants to see an impact before she passes, rather than waiting for the gift to make a difference after she's gone. So hopefully that answered a little bit of your question there, and if not, I'm always happy to try to prompt you with some other thoughts and ideas afterwards. So now next, you're all excited, you're ready to move forward. What can you focus on? The biggest too is to just work through that confirmation form. Again, that form that says, hey, I've already done this. Just have the donor complete it with the donor, and indicate that you're doing this so that you can ensure that their gift is handled properly after. I typically use the language after neither one of us are going to be around to handle it, since it's going to happen so far in the future. You can at that point start to ask for a copy of their will. If you have built that trust with them and you think that they'd be comfortable providing you with it, whether the full copy or just a snippet as to what relates to your organization, that also helps with your records of making sure the gift is handled how they want it to be handled. And then in best cases, you can always ask for the name and contact information of their executor or executrix or their lawyer. Again, it's just reassuring them that you're here for the long haul to ensure that their wishes are executed on the back end the way that they want. And then these requests really wrap right back into stewardship, that you're proving to them that not only will your organization be around forever, but you're committed to ensuring that their gift comes through the way that the donor has intended your gift to. And then the stewardship is also great to just keep in touch and always say thank you so that, there's the possibility of additional gifts coming in at a later time. So there's all sorts of resources. Biggest thing I tell people is to just network. Find somebody that maybe has a couple more years of experience than you do in the plan giving world, and just ask away. Buy them coffee once in a while, or tea, or water, whatever works kind of deal. It's a little tougher right now, but at some levels it's easier because you can just ask somebody for a Zoom meeting or so, or WebEx like what we're on today. Do some research through AFP, or the National Association of Charitable Gift Planners. They like to seem to change their name every so often, but some great resources that are out there. And then there's two main people that I follow, which is Dr. Russell James, who's down at, I believe he's Texas Tech, and Brian Klontz, who works with the National Gift Annuity Foundation. He's out of Florida. He actually was a frontline fundraiser for a number of years and now works with nonprofits on the back end, helping them structure non-cash gifts and things like that. And I would even say that within this, and not a shameless plug because they're the sponsors today, but somebody like a Univest Foundation that has both the financial advisor side and the charitable sides represented, they're also going to be able to probably provide advice on both sides of that line for you. And then just books. There's quite a few books that are out there. Again, when I do this presentation live, I bring in a stack of them with me. And we're pretty lucky that in the greater sort of eastern half of Pennsylvania, that some of these authors that have written books on plan giving are pretty local. There's a gentleman, a couple in the southeastern Pennsylvania quadrant. There's another guy that wrote a book that's, I believe, still out of North Jersey. He and his co-author were working in Philadelphia at the time. And so they're all around. But the key takeaways from today, again, is to just make sure that you build trust, you're consistent, and that you have patience with your donors. Again, create those check boxes. They're the easiest way to handle some of this. Create this membership form for people to start to give you an idea of what they're interested in doing with their plans. Meet your donors. Right now might be a little bit more challenging, but at some levels it's easier. You can typically crank through 3 or 4 phone calls faster than you could through one individual meeting that you might have gone through before, as far as like driving there, finding the right place, driving back, all that sort of stuff. But again, just trust, consistency, and patience. Like I'd say those over and over again. So I know here's some of the frequently asked questions I get. I don't know if we want to go through a couple of these or if we want to touch on anything else right now. I'll keep going because nobody's muted me yet or turned me off. So how much should I budget for a plan giving or how much should I budget for plan giving marketing? And that's one that I get probably every time I do this, or every time I literally stand up and talk, and that's really based upon your organization. If you're just getting started, maybe you want to look at just some email blasts that go out that are attached to what you already do, or those check boxes that I touched on in your direct mail program. And if you're larger, you've been around for a little bit, maybe you should look at a decent several $1,000 investment. And by several thousand, I mean like in the 20s or so, looking at a full suite that covers your entire year of, USPS type mail marketing, social media, direct mail, or not direct mail, email, and a website as well. So I see Jennifer popped back on screen, so I'll stop and see if there's any other questions before I keep going.
Oh, Greg, I was going to tell you to just keep on rolling. We don't have any other questions from the group, but you're asking some of the questions I would have asked anyway to fill in your material. So I can keep talking to you, finish your drink, and then go right on ahead.
All right. So, one of my other questions that I hear frequently are just, do I need a full website suite? And, I think websites anymore are kind of like your barrier to entry, that you need a site, you need at least some pages on your site that are focused on plan giving, but you don't really need to have a full suite with full gift calculators. You know, one of my views is I want enough there for the donor to feel like we know what we're talking about, but then that they are hopefully now comfortable enough that they're willing to reach out to us directly and to contact us. But again, going back to some of those items I had mentioned you should have in your Word document, as far as like what your proper name is, the county that you're located in, what your employer identification number is. And again, like those items should be listed on your website, as well as a how to get in contact with you if you're your plan giving person. And again, your photo that's on there, so people can start to see that you're a real person and not just like this email holding bucket somewhere for things to go to. And then the Secure Act, sorry, I was mixing my acts a little bit earlier in the presentation. So the Secure is the one that now splits the difference between 70.5 and 72. So a qualified charitable distribution can occur once somebody is 70.5, where they can take money up to $100,000 out of their retirement account and pass it directly to you as a nonprofit, and that doesn't inflate their earned income for the year. And now the required minimum distribution, where the government says you have to take money out of your IRA, that doesn't occur until 72. So sort of that sweet spot has moved up to 72. And sometimes if an individual has retirement sources of income from other places, or if they're still working even, you know, they're going to look for ways that they can take that required minimum distribution without adding to their earned income, you know. So there's lots of fun things that you can do to really be helpful with people, and again, that rolls back into ways to make your boss happy about plan giving, because that's a current gift that helps your organization today that a lot of times sort of falls under that whole plan giving structure. So yeah, ran through everything. If you ever want more information or samples, I'm happy to share. There's my contact information, and I think that'll get shared some other ways too. But again, you know, I'll say thank you for having me today and for participating. It's been a lot of fun talking to all of you remotely through the little like pinpoint of light on my computer, but it's been a lot of fun. So thank you, Jennifer, for having me today.
Well, thank you, Greg. You've given us a lot of information, very real information that we can just take into the next steps and just follow through on. Again, I thank you for the plug for Univest Foundation. If you're hesitant, please reach out to Greg or I. Definitely Univest Foundation. We have some of that language that he was talking about up on our website. You can take that, just copy and paste it from the website. I say that to organizations all the time. Don't worry about making it up yourself or calling your attorney. Just copy and paste it and take it. Also, a lot of small descriptions of different tools for plan giving is up on our website as well. I do want to just say, you know, if you have any questions going forward, reach out to Greg or I, but also just take this information and take it out to your donors. Really, if you were listening to what Jay said last time, listen to their story and figure out how that gift is going to make a difference for your organization if they are dedicated to it. Jill, I just wanted to touch on your question. It doesn't take an attorney or a financial advisor for someone to make you a beneficiary of a tool, an IRA, life insurance, something like that. And again, want those ideas, call Greg or I, bounce those ideas off of us and see if, you know, maybe that would work for your particular donor. Or we might say, they really need an attorney, and we'll let it go at that. But again, thank you so much, Greg. Thank you for everyone who participated. And again, I can't say it enough. Reach out if you have any questions. Have a great afternoon talking to all those donors.